Welcome, everybody, to the Week 15 recap. Recapping all the games, starting with Thursday night, the annihilation of the Los Angeles Chargers, the end of the Brandon Staley era. Going into Saturday, all the games that happened around the NFL. Sunday, Monday, and here we are on Tuesday to recap all the games that was missed in the NFL.
And it is also Christmas time, and as you are very well aware, if you're a follower and a dedicated fan of the Brickyard podcast, we do our weekly jersey swap. So we did our birthdays where we pick a former player of any team, and then for Christmas, we just pick a random jersey of an active player right now, and then we do a little mystery jersey unboxing. So I will go first and give you your present here. I am excited for you to open this up, and I picked this as a storyline for this season, and it's a talking point you've had all year, so hopefully you enjoy it.
Okay, let's go. Oh boy. Oh boy. Don't tell me who I think it is. Oh my God. Is it none other than the king himself, Sam Laporta?
Standing at 6'5", a 230-pound tight end out of the University of, I forget where he played, Iowa?
Sure.
Yeah.
Damn. I got to put on this Sam Laporta jersey real quick. Oh, boy. Let's fucking go.
Hell yeah. That is hype.
That's hype. Sam Laporta.
Sam
Now I can
Laporta.
rock the Lions proud.
I thought it was fitting, too. I was like, I want to give you this jersey after he just had not one, not two, but 3 touchdowns on Saturday night.
If the rest of my team wasn't completely ass, that might have won me my football game. This one is brought to you by the great people at GoPuff. You see the hat I rock here. Official sponsors. Type in promo code BRICK to get 15% off your order here with GoPuff. This player here, this is a semblance of our friendship and a resemblance of how proud we've been to do season 3 of the Brickyard. So Merry Christmas to you.
Texans. Oh, boy.
CJ Stroud making us CJ proud.
Making us proud. I almost bought this jersey too, so I'm glad I held off on it. But yes, we have the Texans blue here.
The Texans Whisperers strike again.
This will be great for when we go to Texas.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna get mauled in Dallas by some Cowboys fans. Like, how can you wear CJ Stroud jersey? Stroud and proud, though.
Stroud and proud. Tradition lives on.
The tradition lives on. This was a good year.
This was a good year.
CJ Stroud and proud.
He's a Stroud boy.
That was funny because the other jersey I was looking for was Will Anderson.
Really?
But I couldn't find any. They could only find like his college jersey.
I was going to originally get you Max Crosby, but CJ Stroud is what I landed on. The Houston Whisperers.
CJ Stroud and proud, and I'm sure he was proud of his teammate Davis Mills and Case Keenum for helping them get the win and stay alive in the playoff hunt here. But yeah, with that jersey swap.
We're jerseyed out.
Stroud jersey is awesome. Sam Laporta jersey looks great. It's going to be badass in the future.
Absolutely.
And then 2 rookie players by accident too.
Yeah, actually. 2 guys who potentially could win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's going to be one of the 2, I feel.
One of the 2. Sam Laporta should definitely be up there, though, especially with all the other tight ends. But some other people that should be up there for not Rookie of the Year or anything of that nature, but just the worst team in football, the most disappointing team in football. That's right. The LA Chargers stay out here breaking their fans' hearts. And then we had the Raiders who had just got shut out.
Yes.
Like, not like, oh yeah, we had a bad game. We scored 17 points. Like, no, they didn't score any points the week before.
And they only gave up 3 points that same week that they lost. They were members of the worst top 5 because of that.
Yeah, because of that. And then fast forward, Austin Eckler banged up. So we have Josh Kelly in there at running back. And then he fumbles right away. There are multiple fumbles. I believe the Chargers had 3 turnovers in the first half. And then there was like a muff punt that they had. And it wasn't anything particularly special that the Raiders were doing on offense. They were just turning over the Chargers. They had a short field most of the time. And then once a year, we get a sighting from our friend, Brandon Bolden.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Brandon Bolden. And Brandon Bolden had another game where he just randomly showed up and went off. People don't know where it comes from. He'll be in Miami, New England, Buffalo. He'll just come out of nowhere and then just have an absolutely electric game. And then it's with how reactionary this week is, and I'll touch on the Raiders, then we can go in the Chargers, is Antonio Pierce, like, oh, this isn't a guy we can carry forward to next year. Yeah. This is a guy where you allowed 3 points and you still lost the game because you couldn't score on offense. You're benching Jimmy Garoppolo. What are we really doing there? And then turn around, then you get 63 points on Thursday night. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this may be a guy. And it's been like the same thing with the MVP conversation. One week, Dak's the MVP. The next week, Dak sucks and he's not the MVP. And it's been the same thing with Antonio Pierce here recently. And this was just a magnificent beatdown. And I texted you, I'm like, if this doesn't get Staley fired, I don't know what will.
Yeah, no, it's funny because this game, I came into this game, I'm like, no Justin Herbert. We have Easton Stick. Austin Eckler's banged up. We're going to see Josh Kelly and perhaps some Isaiah Spiller. Keenan Allen's banged up. And then you have Quentin Johnson. That guy couldn't catch a cold. This guy sucks. I'm like, and then against the Raiders, who just didn't score whatsoever. So I'm like, you know what? I boycott this game. I'm not going to watch this. I'm going to go over a girl's house, hang out with her instead. I look at the score just periodically. I look at the first quarter. They're down 21-0 in like the halfway point of the first quarter. I'm like, oh my God. I texted my friend, the one that we've mentioned several times on this show, and read his sacred texts. I'm like, dude, don't watch this game. And then I check again. It's 42-0. And then I check again. It's 56-7. I'm like, please tell me you're not watching this game. He finally texted me. He's like, nah, bro, I refuse. Fuck the Chargers. Word for word. That was my reaction the whole game. I'm like, what is happening? And then you texted me Brandon Bolden. I'm like, uh-oh. It's once in a blue moon. You'll see Brandon Bolden. He'll appear from the shadows. He's always lurking. You never know where he is necessarily, whether it's New England or Buffalo or Miami. And now he dawns again in the silver and black.
Yeah.
Brandon Bolden returns as a Raider, and he has 3 rushing touchdowns in this game. I think he rushed for 100 yards.
At least 2, yeah.
And he ran all over the lowly Chargers. The Chargers, the only bright side for the game for the Chargers is that the lowly Brandon Staley is officially gone.
Yeah, the lowly Brandon Staley is officially gone. And all of last season, we were like, why is Brandon Staley like being clamored for like this great head coach? Like, I get it. The Chargers are finally going to the playoffs here, but it always seemed like Zach Taylor would get unfair criticism in Cincinnati, and then Brandon Staley would get unfair praise in LA with the Chargers. And always seemed like, oh yeah, we had Anthony Lynn here, so we need to come in and bring in this guy who's uber aggressive, but you brought in someone who's also uber stupid. And I'm not saying he's a dumb head coach by any means. Jalen Ramsey liked him as their defensive coordinator when he was with the Rams, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good head coach. And that doesn't mean when you blow a 27-point lead, you should be surprised when this guy gets fired. People are like, has Brandon Staley lost the locker room? Is this loss an indication of that? Oh my God, the sky is falling in LA after that game. I'm like, did you not watch them in the playoffs blow a 27-point lead in Jacksonville? Like, if that wasn't a clue enough, how do you even call yourself a football commentator where you can go on TV and like, I'm so shocked that this happened with the Chargers this season? I'm like, are you actually shocked this season that this happened with the Chargers? Because all of last year, we were like, that Browns game, even though they won it, I'm like, why are you going for it when you're literally still on the elf? They went for it when they were in field goal range, and they had no business doing for that. And there are multiple games where they went for it where they shouldn't have. And then their record in one-score games was like 6-13 at that point. And
Horrible.
You're like, oh, this lost the locker room? Has Brandon Staley lost the locker room of the Chargers? I'm like, I don't know. Does blowing a 27-point lead when you just picked off Trevor Lawrence 4 times in the first half and then your defense looks like Swiss cheese in the second half look like a guy who lost the locker room? There's a guy who's snippy with the media like, I'm still calling the plays here. All good coaches have one of these horrific losses like in their career. Like, really? You're surprised that this guy had lost the locker room and got fired? Like, no way. We said Frank Reich, Brandon Staley, gone this season. And we were right. Where the Brickyard was right.
Where the Brickyard was right. And it's funny because if you look at the rest, like starting with that game, right? 27-0. They go into half. And then they blow that lead. And it was, you kind of knew that after the first touchdown, you're like, oh boy, here we go. They blow that game. And a normal franchise, a competent franchise goes, that's it. We can't bring him back. You can't bring him back. And what have we seen since? We've seen them lose multiple one-score games. We've seen them beat Tyson Badgett Zach Wilson, Bailey Zappi by 6 points, scoring 6-0.
Yeah.
And then other than that, it's like you beat Kirk Cousins when you should have lost that game. So really, your wins have not been impressive, and your losses have been Charger games, typical Charger games. So I thought they should have fired him last year. They fumbled. Now they are here at this point. They're 5-9, easily the most disappointing team in all of football this year. And now, if they want to resurrect the Chargers brand, they need to actually spend money this time. Whether it's Bill Belichick or whether it's Jim Harbaugh, whoever it might be, get somebody in the locker room who's a grown-up and is not a baby, because Brandon Staley was a child.
Yeah, Brandon Staley was a child, but do you have any fear with this Chargers organization being cheap, where most of their fans aren't looking at how the owner really cares about his bottom line here, and he's kind of been a cheap owner, which is why you had a situation where Sean Payton is like, hello, I want to coach Justin Herbert, not Russell Wilson. You maybe move that guy out of the way who blew a 27-point lead. And it's not like the Super Bowl where it's Tom Brady. This was Trevor Lawrence, who we'll get to later, but not the same situation as losing to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl here.
Yeah.
But do you worry that their owner is just going to make the wrong decision? Because I can't remember a really good head coaching hire for the Chargers in a while.
No, I don't think I ever can. Like, you had Ken Whistlehunt, right? You've had Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn was, the problem is what they always do is they go young and they go cheap. Brandon Staley, not really a lot of experience. He coached the Bears and he coached the Rams. And then Anthony Lynn, he was the DC for the Bills at one point.
Yeah.
And then Ken Whistlehunt, he bounced around. Then they had, I think they had Steve Spagnuolo for one point. But they always go cheap. Now it's time to go somebody who actually has won in the NFL, whether it's Bill Belichick, whether it's Jim Harbaugh, somebody who's actually had success, someone who can change the culture. Please not Ron Rivera. But my concern, absolutely, because they've never gotten it right.
Yeah.
You're basically asking for them to reverse the curse, right? People are worried about the Lions and how they were for the last forever.
Yeah.
The Chargers, if they want to change, they need to change now, because you just got $400 million in ad revenue from the NFL. You can afford it. You're fine. You're an NFL franchise. If you're too cheap, sell the team.
Do you, if you're a head coach, do you weigh like Carolina? Maybe it's more dysfunctional with David Tepper. Maybe Bryce Young hasn't proven yet that he can be to the same level of Justin Herbert. But do I really want to coach in a stadium where all of my home games are going to be 60% opposing fans?
That's a big concern. But you also have an opportunity to reverse that if you do things right. And I would be excited to be a Chargers head coach, because you basically are starting from scratch, because you have $45 million behind the cap this year. So you're going to have to lose Khalil Mack, although he'll probably retire. Joey Bosa, what are we doing with him? Derwin James, can we trade him? Keenan Allen, he's probably gone. Austin Eckler, he's gone. So you really get the chance to like actually fully rebuild the franchise. The problem is that they're probably going to do it with the wrong guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see them like hiring someone like a Ron Rivera. Maybe like, I don't want to say this guy's going to be a bad head coach, because we haven't seen him get the chance before, but maybe they go like defense again with someone like Lou Anarumo. I don't think that would be a bad fit, but if I'm Ben Johnson, I'm just like, I don't know if I want to go to the Chargers. If I'm him, I would rather go to, as crazy as it sounds, Chicago, because I think they're set up better long term for the future, especially if you get rid of Justin Fields or you pay him at a discount. Because if I'm a head coach right now, we talked about the Browns salary caps issues. You also have to look at Justin Herbert's contract issues and how he's not gotten better each year. His rookie year was his ceiling, and he's like fluctuated between regressing and stepping up, but he hasn't shown he's a guy who's going to step up, be clutch, and have that dog into him. And I get you have to coach that into some players, but you have an aging Khalil Mack. You have an aging Joey Bosa, who is kind of like a Draymond Green type figure where you never know when he's going to lose you a game. He hurt them in that game versus Jacksonville with some of his penalties where he was screaming at the refs and yelling profanities at them. So you have to look at it like this is going to be a full rebuild, and you're going to be stuck with Justin Herbert's contract as well. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but he's being paid of the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow, and he's not on the same level as any of those guys.
Yeah, I think the difference between someone like Herbert and these other three guys is they lose Mike Williams, and that offense takes such a dive. And that's the difference between, you see Patrick Mahomes, right? His number one right now is a rookie wide receiver, Rashid Rice, right? Kadarius Toney, pretty much the rest of the receiver core, terrible. Right. Lamar Jackson, historically, this year he finally has some decent options. But historically, it was like Hollywood was his one, and then it was like, Willie Snead and whatnot. Same goes with Joe Burrow. He's had some great receivers, don't get me wrong, but historically, like, you got to elevate your team.
Yeah.
And Justin Herbert doesn't. He keeps them right where they always should be, which is just mediocre to like maybe above average. This year, they lose Mike Williams, and they have taken such a dive. And Justin Herbert, he's getting paid as somebody who should still continue to keep the team afloat. And he hasn't done that.
Yeah, no, he hasn't done that yet, but we will see. But we saw this coming before the season. Like, some of these people who are like, oh my God, has Staley lost the locker room? Like, yes. How could you not see this coming after they blew a 27-point lead? But again, where the Brickyard was right, we can't help it sometimes, but we just get everything right leading into this regular season and previous seasons. And another thing we got right, we both picked the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Minnesota Vikings. We had the first slate of Saturday games, and I think it was a overwhelming success. I liked watching all three of these games. And then Cincinnati Bengals go to overtime with the Vikings, and then Tyler Boyd makes one of the most ridiculous touchdown catches of the season, right up there with some of DK Metcalf's plays. What do you take away from the Vikings loss here? Do you think they're going to start to fall out of that mix? And then are you encouraged by Cincinnati and thinking they can make a playoff push now?
Oh, 100%. For the Vikings, you bench Josh Dobbs, and Nate Mullins, he played fine, I guess, but that's a team that, Justin Jefferson's been banged up, and a lot of the other teams, it seems like their offensive line is in absolute shambles.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking at teams that are in that playoff picture in the NFC, whether it be the Rams, Packers, Seahawks, and then the Vikings look like the worst of the four. And do I want to see a matchup between the Lions and Vikings, or do I want to see a match between like the Lions and the Rams or Lions? Pretty much any of the other three teams would be better. And then, so I think they'll continue to regress. For the Bengals, they had something special with Jake Browning. Jake Browning, he's continued to ball in every single game he's played. He was a gamer. He made some great throws when it mattered. The good news for them is that he will most likely be starting somewhere next year. And I absolutely think, depending on who they match up with in the first round, they can play some upset ball.
Yeah. Do you think he reminds you of, say Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe, where Drew Bledsoe got his team to a Super Bowl, but just had a problem with injuries staying on the field here. And then they eventually moved on. Jake Browning was a cheaper option moving forward, so they could afford to pay someone like T. Higgins, afford to pay someone like Jamar Chase, where someone would happily take a player like Joe Burrow? Or do you think Jake Browning is just a guy who's, I can't even say that with a straight face.
No, somebody was trying to argue. It's like, oh, what does this mean for Joe Burrow's job? I'm like, nothing. It just means they're going to get a nice draft pick out of him.
Yeah,
they're probably going to trade him, and he's going to start somewhere. I don't know. There's some places like maybe the Raiders, maybe the Patriots, maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
there's a lot of options.
Yeah, I think what they'll do with Jake Browning is just hold on to him until after the draft, and then the teams that whiff on their quarterback or need like a really good backup will be there. But if you don't have that much interest, I would want to keep him on the team if he's proven to be a competent starter, like someone like a Gardner Minshew character that can take his team to the playoffs and potentially win a playoff game, because Joe Burrow has been hurt half the years he's played in his career, and it seems like he's always banged up with something. Now, is that the offensive line's fault? Kind of. But is it also Joe Burrow's putting himself in harm's way and enjoying getting hit? A little bit. So I would say Joe Burrow's kind of been like a Big Ben, where Ben was always hurt with something was always bothering him during his career. So for a team like the Bengals, I wouldn't mind them keeping Jake Browning on their team just so they have a really good backup quarterback if they can't get like, say, a second round pick for him.
Yeah, which I think there's definitely going to be a market, especially depending on how things fall in the draft. Really, it's the big three: Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels. But if you miss out on one of those guys, you're not really in love with Bo Nix, then you see somebody like Jake Browning, who's proven the last couple of games that he can elevate his team and play some good football. I don't know. I see a team like maybe the Commanders want to go out there and try to take him, whether it's I don't know. You can kind of bounce around a few names. The Saints,
Broncos,
the Saints, whoever it might be. Like,
yeah,
he's a cheap option and he's a gamer. And I think the locker room likes him a lot too.
Yeah, I think the locker room likes him a lot, and it's nice to see Joe Burrow like in his corner on the sideline. And I think this Cincinnati Bengals team, with what I've seen from the Chiefs, could go into Arrowhead and beat them with Jake Browning. I mean,
agree.
they've proven enough, and then he got tested early in his career. His first game was against Pittsburgh when they were still good, so that was a tough environment. But I'm encouraged with the Bengals, and then Vikings. Want to see them continue to fall out of that playoff spot. Another team that we need to see fall out of that playoff spot. There are actually 3 of those teams playing today, and one was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Starting out, Mitchell Trubisky again, who ended up being benched by the end of the game for Mason Rudolph. Does this encourage you with the Colts, though, and their playoff chances to play some upset ball?
Yeah, I think so. They've played, I mean, I think they've won, 7 of the last 8 games?
Yeah.
They've been on an absolute tear. Gardner Minshew, he's shown, we talked about it before the season. We're like, Gardner Minshew, he could start somewhere and he could play some good football. And he's proven that this year due to unforeseen circumstances with Anthony Richardson. But they played very well, especially in a tough environment like Pittsburgh. I don't know what the hell is going on with Pittsburgh. I know that Mitch Trubisky is not a good quarterback, and starting Mason Rudolph should be better, I guess. Can't really be much worse.
Yeah.
But goddamn, you lost to the Cardinals. You lost to the Patriots. At least the Colts, it's like, all right, that's fine. That's a valid matchup. But the way that they've been losing these games is just abysmal. And now all I can pray for is that they can end this fucking winning streak nonsense, the winning season nonsense. Please have a losing season at this point. I'm tired of the Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. I'm like, okay, but he's been 9-8 or 8-8 for a majority of those seasons at this point. Not saying he's not a good head coach, but the winning season nonsense is absolute malarkey.
Yeah, it is absolute malarkey. And you talk about the way they lose this game. So what happened is Steelers go up 13-0 in this game. Pretty good, right? Especially when you have a defense with Alec Highsmith and TJ Watt, who should be teeing off. Well, no, that was not the case at all, because not only is Jonathan Taylor out, Zach Moss left this game, and a player who just came off the Colts practice squad and was activated this week. Yeah, Trey Sermon was absolutely balling all over the Steelers. He had a sermon to preach, and it was on that turf in Indianapolis, and he was running all over the Pittsburgh Steelers with 2 backup running backs. They cooked you, and then Gardner Minshew was like, okay, our running backs are out. No problem. I'm going to cook right now. I'm just going to cook the Steelers team, move the ball up and down the field. And then with this Colts team, it gives me a lot of what is missing from Philadelphia's offense this year, because the way Shane Steichen coaches, they asked him about his philosophy before the game. He's like, I rush and pass to score every time. So every play, it's trying to be a big play opportunity. He trusts Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew rose to the occasion this game. We thought they were due for a loss against Cleveland, against the Bengals last week, and they kind of got rolled. And then they came back this game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, another tough AFC North opponent, but at home, they're like, hey, it's our time, and we actually have a legitimate chance to win the division there. And then their run game, plug and play. I mean, Zach Moss isn't there, no problem. No Jonathan Taylor, no problem. It shows how deep this team is, but also how good that system is on its own that Shane Steichen was able to employ. And then it's what put Jalen Hurts in the MVP conversation last year. And it looks like what's definitely missing from the Philadelphia Eagles offense this year is just that extra pop, those extra dynamic runs out of the backfield that we're not seeing this year, because the Eagles are struggling to even run the ball. And then Michael Pittman, he's leveled up this season. Josh Downs, he's leveled up as a rookie coming into the NFL. And then Alec Pierce, he's also taken a step forward. So talk about your coach making everyone better, and then your quarterback not being bad and not giving the game away, and then also creating a fun environment for his teammates.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the coaching, because you look at some other coaches around the NFL, like Kyle Shanahan, for example, a product Trey Sermon came from. Like, no matter who they plug in at running back, they always find a way. And I think it speaks to the play calling. So last year with the Colts, right, you had some turnover. You had Frank Reich, you had Jeff Saturday, but their offensive line, which is historically good, was terrible. This year, their offensive line has played well. You plug in Jonathan Taylor, that's good. You plug in Zach Moss. Zach Moss has a career year in Indy, a guy that nobody really believed in before then. Trey Sermon comes in off the practice squad, a guy that's bounced around the league, guy who was like a third or fourth string on the 49ers at one point. He comes in, he bounces in. And then Josh Downs, rookie wide receiver, they get him, I think, in the third round. Doesn't have a single drop on the season. He's reaching Larry Fitzgerald numbers currently. So a lot of credit to him. And then you look at the Eagles offense this year, completely like so much more clunky, so much more turnover, so many more lapses in just mental errors. I think it speaks a lot to Shane Steichen, who probably at this point is the leader of the head coach of the year situation.
Yeah.
Whether it's him, Kevin Stefanski, or Dan Campbell, he's definitely in the conversation, and he could be the favorite, you could argue.
Yeah, I think you could argue he could be the favorite. I would just lean Dan Campbell, just with how the Lions have been able to turn around fate and kind of just overcome losses they would normally give away, and then turn those games into wins there. And then I think Stefanski, you can argue that just because Anthony Richardson went out, plugged in Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew's having a career year. I think Stefanski, though, just talking about a guy who's been coaching his ass off with DTR, PJ Walker, Deshaun Watson. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Oh, well, we're paying him all this money and he's not going to play. And then he calls up Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's the starter this year. And then just being able to also acquire Jim Schwartz, which was a much needed coordinator on his staff this year, to have the self-awareness to know he needs an extra really good coach who's also on the level of someone who can be a head coach in this league and has been before. And then I would say Zach Taylor, just with Jake Browning, they're still in the playoff mix. And then you have a great case there for Shane Steichen as well. And I think Gardner Minshew, just to talk about one of the most valuable players. I know he's not an MVP, but he's kind of a kooky guy, buys mattresses off Facebook Marketplace. He lives in a van in a gym parking lot, and his staple hobby is playing pickleball outside, not just with regular people, but specifically Cougars. So he's also sick. A Cougar slayer.
That's actually sick, to be honest. Another thing with Kevin Stefanski is that with all the injuries as well, with Kevin Stefanski, I'm going to shout that out because they lost Nick Chubb early in the season. Jerome Ford came in. I saw a number on ESPN, 28% of their salary cap is on the IR and injured, which is crazy. And they're still able to make it work.
Did they give Nick Chubb a bag?
At one point they did. Yeah, I think a couple years ago. So they've been coaching their ass off, but credit to Shane Steichen. This is a team that was horrendous last year. Bunch of turnover, Jim Irsay, all the issues that he's had as an owner the last few years, to come in, bring in Shane Steichen, bring in Gardner Minshew, draft Josh Downs, and that defense really starting to come alive. Credit to them. This is a franchise that has had its ups and downs, especially since Andrew Luck left. And here they are now. They're one win away from potentially winning their division and jumping the Jaguars. So a lot of credit to them. Credit to the Colts.
Yeah, that's what I wish the Jaguars offense looked like. Like, my God.
Yeah, it's a mess.
But then we have a next game, another team I kind of didn't like. They were entering the race for the playoffs, but I still think they're kind of a boring team. Not there yet. That was the Denver Broncos. And then we said this was going to be a huge test, not only for the Detroit Lions, because we've had this theory with them coming off a loss this season. They have played incredible, whether it is losing and then going to New Orleans and kicking the shit out of the Saints, or losing to the Ravens and then getting another great blowout win after that. They're at home, and then Denver comes to town. We're like, all right, if Denver wants to be a legit contender to win their division or just make the playoffs, they have to at least go to Detroit and make some noise. And they made some noise, but for all of the wrong reasons. And that noise was Sean Payton screaming at Russell Wilson, like, dude, what the hell are you doing? We're paying you all of this money and you're playing like Case Keenum. This is unacceptable.
Yeah. And credit to the Lions, right? Like Jared Goff, he's had a bit of a turnover issue the last couple of weeks, probably like the last month or so. He came in, was rock solid, kind of re-entered into that elite quarterback conversation. Sam Laporta, as we know, had a great game. We mentioned that earlier on the show. But I think the big takeaway from the Lions for me was their defense stepping up, because that's been what's been the big issue with them since week 8, really, where offenses have really been able to expose their defense, whether it be in the secondary. Really, the only strong suit the last couple of weeks has been their run game. This game, they shut down Javonte Williams. They shut down Cortland Sutton. They shut down Jerry Jeudy, and kind of made the Broncos bring them back to earth a little bit. and kind of expose Russ a little bit, as you mentioned, as a Case Keenum comparison, which, I mean, I wish I could argue against it, but I see the numbers.
Yeah.
The numbers are real. So Broncos, they come back down to earth. I would not want to see them in the playoffs currently. I get you have, Russell Wilson, name recognition, Sean Payton, but this team is so boring on so many levels. The run game is like good, but not great. Their weapons are fine, not fantastic. Their defense, they have players on that team. Like, we like Pat Surtain a lot, but at the same time, like, this team is so boring. Like, they're going to go, whether it be the Chiefs, whether it be the Jaguars, whether it be the Dolphins or Bills or the Ravens, like, they're not going to beat any of those teams, and they're going to face any of those teams. They're not going to beat any of them.
Yeah, I'm so sick of people like, oh, yeah, the Broncos could be a dangerous team in the playoffs. Like, yes, I'm horrified because if the other team can score 20 points, they'll definitely be a threat, right? Nope. Like, I don't want to see a team in the playoffs that has to rely on holding a team below a certain amount of points, because with how good the Broncos can be, it basically caps out at 25 points. They're not going to move the ball up and down the field on people. They're not going to score a ton of points. It's going to have to be their defense. The game they beat the Buffalo Bills, it's like, sure, you beat the Buffalo Bills by just waiting for Josh Allen to turn the ball over when the Bills were going through a rough stretch, and Josh Allen was turning the ball over left and right. And that's how you ended up winning that game, because you got those extra possessions. When Jared Goff locks in, though, and Dan Campbell's like, I need to be more irritable in practice because these turnovers are unacceptable from my star quarterback. Jared Goff, do you want to be playing somewhere else next year? Defense, who wants to stay on the field? Act like it and stop some people. And their defense showed up, and Jared Goff didn't turn the ball over. And when they're not getting those extra possessions, they're not going to be a dominant team. And then Jared Goff took it upon himself in this game to not only not lose the game, but to win the game, because some of the throws he was making in this game was absolutely beautiful. It was probably one of his best games of the season. He had, I believe, his 5 touchdown passes in this game. Yeah, so he was playing at an MVP level versus a team that had the playoffs in sight, were raising their playoff hopes, were supposed to be one of the comeback teams of the year. Ooh, they could be a threat if they just get in the dance. And the Lions are like, how about no? Because we still want to be in the conversation to not only be in the playoffs at the 3 seed, but we still think we have a legitimate chance to be the 2 seed, because we still get a chance to play Dallas, and the Philadelphia Eagles are going on a skid. So we think we should have the opportunity to play the worst team in the NFC that makes the playoffs, whether it is the Packers, whether it's the Rams, and then you get that storyline matchup with Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff going head to head with the 2 teams that traded each other. So you could get a lot of storylines there, but the Lions stepping up. Dan Campbell off of a loss, and the Lions have been electric so far this season. And I think that's definitely a good thing to see this season. And they kind of remind me of the Celtics when they were young and up and coming, where when no one had any expectations for them, they'd come out and surprise people. But once they start getting that pressure put back on them, then they would start to crumble, have some turnovers here and there. So I think people have kind of cooled off the Lions bandwagon. As soon as everyone proclaimed them a Super Bowl contender, everyone immediately jumped right off the ship. So I think with that being the case, the Lions are playing still with house money. It's still a team that hasn't won a playoff game in like 60 years at this point. Last team they beat was the Dallas Cowboys. So even if they just win a game, the season is a success in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think their ceiling is probably the NFC title game. I don't see them beating the Niners, who I think is inevitably going to make it there. But between all of the turmoil that they've had a couple of ugly losses this year, especially that Packers game on Thanksgiving, especially that Ravens game, which doesn't look so bad now considering how good the Ravens have been. But with some of the struggles that they've had, for them to bounce back with each and every loss, I give a lot of credit to them there. Jared Goff had a couple of games where he was turning the ball over, fumbling the ball, giving opportunities to the other team. Defense not really stepping up, but they're back. I think they're back. And I think that, I watch Amon-Ra St. Brown's podcast with his brother.
Yeah.
And his brother was clowning him for how the Lions are pretenders and how they're chokers and how same old Lions. And I think
Equiminius, really?
Equiminius, yeah, put it in the back of his ear. He's like, well, we're still 9-4. We're still, we got a long way to go, but we're still a legit team. Yeah. Having that in the back of his mind, they come out. Amon-Ra has a great game. And I think the Lions have a new sense of urgency because of what's kind of been the narrative the last few weeks with them.
Yeah, and I think the Lions are the best matchup for the Niners, because I think as far as the Cowboys and the Eagles, sure, they could be a good matchup because they played them before, but the Lions don't know what they don't know yet. They're still kind of that young team with a little bit of bliss. All the pressure is going to be on the San Francisco 49ers. All the pressure is going to be on Brock Purdy. And then you have probably the best 1-2 punch in the backfield in the league at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're figuring out how to involve Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams in the backfield. So if the Lions are healthy, we just have to see how injuries play out in the NFC title. But if they can get to that 2 seed and avoid the Niners, I think they'll be right there in the championship.
Yeah, I think they'll do great. And especially if they can win that playoff game. That'll alleviate all the pressure, similar to how the Bengals were a few years ago with that Super Bowl run.
Yeah, and then you never know. Kyle Shanahan clock management is still an issue.
Yeah, and we've seen the 49ers have also been front runners. They've won the last 4 games by 15 plus.
Yeah.
So they get behind the Niners. I mean, they're behind the Lions. The Lions run the ball, move the chains, keep scoring. They're a high-scoring team. I don't think it's crazy that they could potentially upset the 49ers.
Yeah, I'm still a believer. I mean, Sam Laporta, he's going to be a difference maker. Just that tight end. So I think they'll still be getting better each week. But we have our 1 o'clock slate on Sunday. What game do we have first?
So let's get over the Dolphins and Jets game first, because 30-0 without Tyreek Hill, 0 points. And, Zach Wilson was hurt in this game, right? Trevor Siemian steps in after Zach Wilson gets a concussion. And how many yards did they have for the team? I think they had 100. Yeah, 100 total yards. 100 against the Dolphins defense, who have been one of the most disappointing defenses this year with all that talent. Dolphins had 290 yards as a whole. Jalen Waddle had a big game, some big throws by Tua. Thoughts on this, whatever this game could be called?
The Jets should have taken Will Levis, I guess. Maybe you would have had a chance to win this game, because Will Levis went into Miami. His team was down by 2 touchdowns with 3 minutes left to go. First team since 2016 to come down from down 2 touchdowns. He's not, 40 years old and a career playoff choker. Doesn't have that in the back of his mind yet. And then he's kind of like a bigger, stronger Zach Wilson, but he has more talent and potential there. So this game just proves how screwed over the Jets with themselves, because at best, Aaron Rodgers gives you 2 years. So I think this is another telltale sign of the Jets trading for Aaron Rodgers is a mistake. And then Robert Saleh is starting to feel the pressure. I feel like this year more than most, he always had that excuse of Zach Wilson being bad before. And now the media is kind of criticizing him for not starting Zach Wilson. And then we've seen him in the past few weeks start to crack in those press conferences. We've seen the frustration come out with some penalties for some unnecessary roughness on the defense there. So I think the Jets are a team that's starting to get demoralized, and I'm surprised that the Dolphins beat a team with a losing record. No, not really.
That's kind of what they do.
It's kind of what they do at this point. Mike McDaniels was like, hey, Tennessee gives us like a good humbling opportunity to go out there and then beat the New York Jets. I'm like, yeah, it does, because the New York Jets suck. And Zach Wilson, when he's not at home, the Jets are a completely different team on the road. East Rutherford benefits their defense, especially in December, but going to Miami, it's not a real advantage.
No, not at all. They rolled him. Raheem Mostert has 20 touchdowns on the season, really starting to light it up there. Has the most touchdowns. He has more touchdowns this year than he has all of his 8 years prior. And I already kind of knew this going into this week, but it's kind of confirmed. It seems like every year there's going to be this, 28 to 30-year-old aging running back joins a team, has a bunch of goal line touchdowns, leads the league in touchdowns. We saw Jamal Williams last year with the Lions and what he did. Now we have Raheem Mostert this year for the Dolphins, playing really well for them. They finally have a run game, so credit to them, but they beat a bad team, so I'm not that impressed.
Do they have a run game, or are the Jets just demoralized? Because I still have yet to see Miami actually lean on their run game when they actually need a run game. Like this game, they seem like, respectfully, they could do whatever they wanted on that Jets defense. Jalen Waddle looked like Tyreek Hill in this game, so it's like, did the Dolphins actually have a run game, or were the Jets just not interested in being in Miami and they were more looking forward to going to the club after the game?
I think there's both. I like Devon A-Train a lot, but yeah, Raheem Mostert doesn't move the needle for me very much. Although he's had a great season, I think this Jets team is absolutely toast, and I think the documents say they should be on the appearance of the bottom 5 teams.
Yeah, they should be on the appearance of the bottom 5 team, and they are also on the appearance of being out of the playoffs.
Good.
Yeah, they're officially eliminated from the playoffs right there with the Patriots. Had a lot of potential there, but yeah, the Jets are going to be a problem, not only for the league, but for themselves over the next few years.
Yeah. Speaking of bottom 5 teams, Chiefs and Patriots game.
Oh, God.
This game, for a while, made me nervous. I'm like, Patriots, what are we doing? You beat the Steelers, which, I mean, cool, you beat Mike Tomlin again, but like you shouldn't have won that game against Mitch Trubisky. Then they go to the Chiefs, give them a bit of trouble for the first half, and then eventually some big plays by Rashid Rice. They win the game. Not really a whole much to break down here, other than for the Patriots, had they have lost the Steelers game, they'd be in sole possession of the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and that's just kind of what the Patriots have been this year. Is I was like, the Patriots at the end of the season, they're going to win a game to blow the number 1 pick. And that is exactly what I said. That is what you said all season long. And then it's going to be a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers that Bill Belichick owns, and then they're going to come out of nowhere. And that's exactly what happened versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, because the Carolina Panthers win this week versus the Atlanta Falcons, and they put their playoff hopes on life support. But also the Patriots were like, hey, we're going to go out there, beat Pittsburgh. We don't want Caleb Williams. Maybe Caleb Williams just doesn't want to go to New England, because at this point, who would want to go to a team that's not going to get you any wide receivers? And then Patriots win. This game was competitive. I was like, it'd be interesting if the Patriots just hung with the Chiefs for a little bit. It was really just the first half, but we had some reports about the Patriots this week, and it's apparently a report that they're moving on from Bill Belichick from Tom Pelissero. Apparently, he got that report after the Germany game when they lost to Indianapolis, sat on it, released it like a month later, and then the Patriots were like, no, that's not true at all. And so now everyone's just kind of confused.
Yeah, I'm confused too. If you're going to move on from Bill Belichick, do it the right way. Don't have all these reports that have been leaking throughout the season. Like, whether or not they're accurate or not, it's just annoying. Like, decide what you want to do at the end of the season, but for now, just play out the rest of the season. You're not going to fire him in season. He's done too much for that organization. But it's weird for me that, like, I understand why after the Germany game that might have been a real thing, because that was a horrible game. But now the last month, I don't think they've played, I mean, for the Patriots standards, they haven't played poorly by the Patriots standards. At least with Bailey Zappi,
yeah,
there's some energy there for at least the first half.
The defense has been good.
The defense has been really good. They gave the Chiefs hell for a little bit, but I don't like these reports that have come out. Like, whether Bill Belichick stays or not, I don't really care at this point. I would honestly be interested in seeing him go elsewhere and have an actual franchise quarterback rather than building what mess the New England Patriots have. I'd rather see him go elsewhere, but I'm tired of these reports, especially if they're all bullshit, which it sounds like they are.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of like needed something, and it was more like, I'm going to report this before I verify or have any evidence before, when it was like, you would need to get the report, check your source, verify that evidence, and then report it. Now it's just like, get some hearsay, report it, and then verify it later. And then no one really cares because it's something interesting to talk about. But I don't think they should move on from Bill Belichick. If they can negotiate like someone else to make the offensive decisions, not only just like on offense, but like in free agency, the general manager, because I still think he can draft defensive players. He's shown that with Christian Gonzalez, and he can still acquire defensive players in free agency and lure them to New England. So if you have another guy that is a really good offensive coordinator as well as a drafter, then you go out there, get Caleb Williams, then you can hit on a receiver, and then you can kind of figure out what you want to do in the draft. But I think Bill Belichick should stay. He's earned the right. I mean, 20 years of dominance, and then you're going to bail on him after a few years. If Bill Belichick wants to leave, sure, that's fine. But should New England move on from him? I don't think so. Like, I think I don't think Bill Belichick actually wants to take Mac Jones. I think that was more of a Robert Kraft, like, hey, you should take Mac Jones. It would be really nice if you took Mac Jones. And then Bill Belichick begrudgingly did it. And he was like, see how bad this kid sucks? I'm going to bench him.
Yeah.
Every game.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I definitely think they need some offensive minds there. That's not Bill O'Brien. But I think Bill Belichick will most likely leave. I think that's kind of where it's headed.
Yeah.
Like, I understand the breakup, But, we talked about this a few times this last couple of weeks. It's like, that a coach has kind of lost its wits when what they're best at, they suck at. Sean McDermott with the defense historically, Frank Reich with the offense and the Panthers. For the Patriots, they held the Chargers to 6 points. They held the Colts to 10 points. You've seen how good the Colts offense has been.
Yeah.
You gave the Chiefs a living hell for the first half of this game. It's like their defense is not the problem. Their defense has actually been great. And that's with losing Matt Judon and Christian Gonzalez, two of their best players pretty much on their entire team. So I think that, whether he goes elsewhere, whether he stays here, really, it's like he's still a great coach at the end of the day. He's still a top 5 coach. He just can't get it right on offense.
Yeah, I would love to see him in Dallas, to be honest. I know Mike McCarthy's having a great year this year, but, he's not Bill Belichick.
You can get Bill Belichick with Micah Parsons, with Defensive Player of the Year Deron Bland, with Stephon Gilmore again.
Stephen Jones.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones. Because he actually complimented them. And I was thinking of, like, what if this was like a conspiracy and Bill Belichick knew this would be his last year in New England. Jerry Jones knew he didn't want to pay Ezekiel Elliott, but he still sees his players as family. He wanted to see Ezekiel Elliott get taken care of. And he's like, Bill, if you take care of Zeke, give him some money to get him through retirement, you can have an opportunity if we don't make the NFC Championship game again this year and Mike McCarthy makes an error to be our head coach. So Bill Belichick takes care of Ezekiel Elliott, does a favor for Jerry Jones, and then he was complimenting Jerry and Steven when he was on College Game Day. And then they're like, oh, Mike McCarthy, you can't get it done. So let's move on to Bill Belichick here.
Or hypothetical, what if Cowboys and Patriots negotiate a trade, Mike McCarthy for Bill Belichick?
He looks like a Dunkin' Donuts mascot already.
I think the Patriots, offensively, they'd be better, I would say, with Mike McCarthy. Defensively, I don't know, because a lot of the defensive players don't really, shine for me very much.
Yeah. On
paper, but they always find a way with Belichick. You put him on the Cowboys with all that talent on defense, that team will become, on certain points this year, they've looked like a top 5 defense, but I think consistently they would be a top 5 defense for the next several years.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, especially like scheme wise, they would definitely be there. Because Mahomes was saying during the game, Bill Belichick gives you the same look every time, so you legitimately don't know what their defense is going to do. With Dan Quinn, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah. And Dan Quinn's a solid coach, but you get Bill Belichick in there, you're good.
Yeah, for sure. What's our next game we have coming up here?
Let's talk about the CJ Stroud proud Texans beating the Titans in overtime with Case Keenum coming from the grave.
Yeah, Case Keenum. Like some plays it was Case Keenum, some plays it was Davis Mills, but Case Keenum, who we've compared to Russell Wilson a few times this year, came out there, played well. Tennessee Titans again. It was one of those. It seems like with the Titans, every time they take a step forward, they also take a step back this year. Will Levis again was struggling against a defensive rivalry, and the Texans defense has played really well, but Texans just couldn't do anything on offense in this game, especially at home. Oilers uniforms weren't enough to save them in this game. And then we heard Derrick Henry after the game, after they were eliminated from the playoffs, contemplating his future in Tennessee. And I think if any year for him to move on, it would definitely be next year. But congrats to the Texans for keeping their playoff hopes alive without CJ Stroud. And that's the sign of a really good head coach when you can go on the road to a tough division rival without your starting quarterback, with no weapons on offense, two of your best weapons banged up right now, and one of them is out for the year. You're able to go in there, get it done, especially in overtime in a tough, gritty defensive battle.
Yeah, and then for the Titans, Derrick Henry, 16 carries for 9 yards. Will Levis has a high ankle sprain. His season, maybe not over, but definitely not looking great that he'll come back this year. Derrick Henry, if he were to leave, right, I think, there's definitely going to be some suitors because, I think he could benefit from a good offensive line. What destinations would shine for you the most as far as like what would fit best for him as far as him moving into the next part of his career?
Dallas or Philly?
Dallas, Philly,
or Tampa if he wants to contend. Because Tampa Bay, they can't figure out the run game with Rachaad White, even though he's rushed for 100 yards in his past 4 games. But he's more of a out of the backfield player, and then he can kind of be that 1-2 punch. You also have Chase Edmonds there, and then Derrick Henry would be a really good addition to that team. Dallas, I really like Tony Pollard, but they just need a little extra thunder coming out of the backfield. And then D Swift, clearly there's a reason why Detroit traded him, and we're seeing why right now with them signing David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Both of them are having better years than D Swift has had so far. So I think those are all teams that could use a second punch out of the backfield. And then if you have the cap space, maybe Buffalo, but they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, James Cook's played well the last few weeks for them. I think that even a team like the Rams would probably benefit from him if they're continuing to be aggressive, which they have been the last several years. But I think it's definitely time. Tennessee, move on from Derrick Henry, D-Hop. Maybe you consider trading him. Maybe you stick with Will Levis. Maybe you don't. Maybe you look to the draft. But it's time to finally. This year, it felt like they were still trying to string together a playoff team, and it's kind of come crashing down. Now it's time for them to rip off the Band-Aid, really start fresh, because this team is just kind of falling apart. They're going to move forward with Tajay Spears and the rest of the guys. Traylon Burks didn't work out. That trade has been a disaster for them. Yeah. So it's time. It's time for them to rebuild. And maybe that's not with Mike Vrabel. I think they should keep Mike Vrabel, but maybe they continue moving on.
Well, Tennessee is a team that can be aggressive, and I don't think the problem is defense, and I still think they have a playoff caliber defense, and they've shown they're a team that'll go out there in free agency and spend money on the running back position. So say in the draft, you get another really good receiver and you get that star and you can pair him with D-Hop. Maybe Traylon Burks gets healthy. You sign another guy in free agency. There's another running back out there whose team keeps franchise tagging him. They went out there and signed DeMarco Murray. What better addition than to go out there and sign Josh Jacobs?
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's definitely not going to stay in Las Vegas at this point, especially with how they've traded him. I think he needs a change. Derrick Henry needs a change. Go out there, get Josh Jacobs. Maybe you draft a good wide receiver if you're capable of, and make some changes, because I think it's time.
Yeah, I could see it. And then any encouragement for the Texans' playoff hopes here in this game?
Yeah, I mean, you won a game that you could have possibly lost. Now you're 8-6. You're still in the mix. CJ Stroud could come back next week. He had a concussion, so I think they should definitely feel optimistic. Now it's just whether they can jump the Colts, if they can jump the Bengals, or if they can jump the Browns, which I think the Browns are all but set at that 5 seed at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Browns are set there. It's really that Panthers loss that's so frustrating, because if they won that game, they'd be in the division lead.
Yeah. And then let's move on to one of your favorite teams, the Bucks beating the Packers.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Bucks.
This game was a great game to watch, and I've become a Packers supporter this past couple of weeks. I've liked what I've seen from Jordan Love. But at the same time, this was the Bucks' season on the line. This was really their first playoff game. And what do we get from Baker Money Mayfield? First overall pick in 2018. We get literally a perfect game. First quarterback from the opposing team to have a perfect QBR in Lambeau Field. 4 touchdowns, I think over 300 yards. Flinging it, whether it be Mike Evans, whether it be Cade Otton, who's been his new favorite target. Baker Mayfield, 22 of 28, 381, 4 touchdowns, and a perfect QBR. Take it away.
Yeah, perfect QBR in this game. This was a team that people were talking about Atlanta. People were talking about New Orleans coming into this season. And we were like, no, this is going to be Tampa Bay's division. And we found out earlier this season, and Tampa Bay showed that they have the ability to evolve, where Todd Bowles was like, I want to play defense and run the football. And they're like, well, we can't necessarily play defense the way you want to play defense or run the football. And Baker Mayfield is like, no, this is going to be a pass first team. And then we're going to get all of these weapons involved that we have. I mean, they draft Palmer, they draft Cade Otton here, and then you still have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans here. So this team is a team that has weapons all over the field less. And it was really a team that struggled to score 20 points before and would have to kind of hold teams below 24 to have a chance to be in the game. And now you want to talk about peaking at the right time. Every time we're talking about don't get hot too early, but you want to get hot right at the point where you can step on the gas and take that momentum into the playoffs. And I said, I think if the Philadelphia Eagles are in that wild card spot, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can beat them. Here's why. Philadelphia Eagles are falling off right now. We just saw that game in Seattle with them struggling. We saw them kind of whimper to the finish line leading up to that Dallas game. And now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are flooring it on offense. And Baker Mayfield was someone who was rejected by the league. He had a bad shoulder in his last year in Cleveland. They kind of were like, no, we don't want to pay you. Get him out of here. You go to Carolina. Well, Carolina, what can we say about Carolina except for they are currently the most dysfunctional franchise in the NFL right now. And then Baker Money Mayfield was like, I'm going to take a chance on myself, go to Tampa. They pay him $4.5 million. All he's done is ball out every single game. And now he's hitting his stride. And people are like, oh, well, they could only score 20 points early in the season. And now they're scoring. What changed? It's like, well, Tom Brady, when he was in Tampa Bay, was struggling earlier in the season. And then right about this time, that's when they hit the gas, because that's how much time it takes to build that continuity, timing, and reps with your receivers. Now he's finding Mike Evans, who had some drop issues this season, which was sort of uncharacteristic, but he got him to another 1,000-yard season. Cade Otton, well, he wasn't coming on early in the season. Why is that? Because he's a rookie. He's a rookie tight end, and you need time to build that feel for the game, and now he's coming alive. Rachaad White, well, he wasn't a factor early in this season. Past 4 games, they've been able to run the football, and he's had 200-yard rushing games out of the backfield. And then Chase Edmonds is another running back who's been really good for them. And then, oh yeah, you still have Chris Godwin there, who's a nice receiver, so they have all of the talent, and they actually have Super Bowl experience and leadership on that team, and a former #1 overall pick who, like Jared Goff, goes to another situation, rallies a team around him, and now they're pushing for the playoffs. They're looking for that division title in the NFC South, and I think they're going to be able to get it this week, especially if the Rams beat the Saints. But their offense is coming alive at the right time, where you're struggling to the finish line of games to get 20 points, and now you're opening up the playbook where you can get 35 to 40 points, and that was the jump I want to see this team take, and they are roaring into the playoffs. And talk about, like, getting hot at the right time is a real thing. In Philadelphia, you can't expect to just stumble into the playoffs and like, oh, well, it's Tampa. Well, Tampa could be 10-7 coming into the playoffs, which is a formidable record.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about Baker Mayfield for a second, because I've luckily been able to see his career continue to develop, right? First overall pick, people are saying should have been Sam Darnold, shouldn't have been Josh Rosen. He goes to Cleveland. He does somewhat turn around the Cleveland franchise from what was a complete disaster the last 20 years prior. And then the last year, there was some drama with OBJ. There was some trouble with, are they going to pay him, whatever it might be. He leaves Carolina, LA from last year. Plays pretty poorly in Carolina, which we see now is not just for Baker Mayfield. Goes to LA, has this magical game against the Raiders, but struggles last year. I think he gets humbled a little bit last year. At one point, it probably looked like he wasn't going to continue his career. Well, now in Tampa, has 25 touchdowns, 8 picks, QBR of 95, which if the season ended today would be his best QBR of his career. He's only a few touchdowns away from his highest touchdown total. He should finish the season with 4,000 yards, which would be his first of his career. I think that we think about Baker Mayfield and how he's been able to reinvigorate his career in Tampa this year, even with a struggling offensive line to start the season, without the run game, a team that's taking over the reins from Tom Brady, trying to enter this new era. I think Baker Mayfield should be in the comeback player of the year conversation, with a couple of other players you can shout out, but give a lot of credit to him. He's proven that he can be a franchise guy, whether it be for 1 year or a few years as they, kind of be a bridge quarterback. He's played great football, and he's an easy guy to root for, I feel like, especially compared to the Saints and the Panthers and the Falcons and what they've been, or what they've brought on the field each and every week. The Bucs, they have a chip on their shoulder with Baker, with a chip on their shoulder with moving on from Brady. And they still have a championship roster.
Yeah, they still have a championship roster. That secondary is always a question, but their head coach was still that head coach who coached the defense in the Super Bowl, and he was the standout one. We're like, oh, maybe we should try Todd Bowles as the head coach instead of, their coach before, who was like, let's throw it down the field every single play. Let's not let Tom Brady run the offense. I'm going to chew out Tom Brady, even though I've proven nothing in my career except for taking over for getting blown out by the Arizona Cardinals in a conference championship game, taking over for the Indianapolis Colts when their coach was going through cancer treatment, being the Steelers' offensive coordinator, but you still had Ben Roethlisberger there at the helm. But with Brady, wasn't really a great fit, so we wanted to see Todd Bowles, and he's been coaching this team where he was someone where everyone was like, well, he's a head coach with the losing record. The only year you can point to with him was the Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, Matt Forte year where they almost made the playoffs and they were 10-6. And for that year, like usually if you're a 10-6 team, you're pretty much a lock to make the playoffs. But that was a pretty competitive year. They ended up missing the playoffs there, unfortunately. But that was really the only thing he had shown in his career. And I think this is finally the year where he's proving that Todd Bowles is a really good head coach in the league. Now, is he going to be a coach of the year candidate? Probably not, but I think his name should be deserved to like maybe be at that 5 position or at least have his ring thrown in the hat because the Bucks were supposed to be the worst team in that division. We were talking about Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield competing for the starting job in training camp. Todd Bowles was taking a while to name a starter. We're like, oh, is this Hugh Jackson-ish like type stuff that he's playing on Baker Mayfield? We are all concerned about that coming into the year. And then for some reason, people like Carolina. For some reason, people like Derek Carr in New Orleans. And then a lot of people liked Atlanta, I feel like, for good reason because they had proven it before. But Tampa's like, no, we're a team that still made it to a Super Bowl. We still have pretty much the same roster there. And then we had a ton of injuries last year, which definitely hurt us in that playoff game. So we think a healthy Tampa Bay Buccaneers in our organization can go out there and win a playoff game. And I think they're primed to play some upset ball if you're not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. So credit to them. Let's move on to the next NFC game, which was the Saints and Giants game. Big stat for me in this game was 35 sacks by Tommy DeVito in the last 5 games, his 5 games he started. He would be on pace for nearly 100 sacks in a full NFL season, getting absolutely abused by his offensive line. Evan Neal, absolute thumb, and all the other guys on that offensive line. Shame on the Giants for what they've done. Got sacked, I believe, 7 times in this game, just getting absolutely murdered by that Saints defensive line.
Yeah, he's getting absolutely murdered by that Saints defensive line here. And then he's gotten absolutely murdered in the past few games. But do you hear him crying about it? Do you hear people making excuses for him why he hasn't played well? Oh, wait, he has played well, getting sacked 35 times the past few games. And he has looked better than Daniel Jones the past few games. And I get in New Orleans, you only score 7 points here. It's a pretty rough stretch, but I think he is still proven to have that poise in the pocket, and he's still proven that he's a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, and he's more valuable to the Giants because you're paying Daniel Jones a ridiculous amount of money. Daniel Jones basically scammed you into paying him that much. He's like, you know what? I'm going to suck year 1, year 2, year 3, and then year 4, I'll give you optimism. I'll give you a reason why you'd be scared to let me walk because you have the fear of the unknown because we don't know who our next quarterback would be if it's not Daniel Jones. But Tommy DeVito gives you hope for this Giants team. He gives you hope that they can rebuild there. His agent is an absolute rock star making the rounds, and he was wearing his green, officially inducted into the Italian Sports Hall of Fame. I think they have their own Hall of Fame for Italy. And then his go-to celebration is not pretending to be Walt Jr. from Breaking Bad. His go-to celebration is like, so even though they did lose, I'm still more encouraged by Tommy DeVito than Daniel Jones because he doesn't look ridiculous doing it.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, Daniel Jones. The question for Daniel Jones, obviously they got to get rid of him at this point, right? Tommy DeVito, he's not only cheaper, but he's better. It's a no-brainer for the Giants front offense. But who's going to take Daniel Jones? The XFL? Can they trade him to another league? Is that possible? Sea Dragons, maybe. Canada. Maybe China football wants to try it out. Maybe he wants to play some rugby. Who knows? But 140 million or 400,000. That's a tough pick. I mean, you're looking at trying to save some money. What's the biggest expense? 140 million or 400,000? That's a tough choice. So Daniel Jones, his days in the NFL are numbered, and Tommy DeVito, his time in the NFL has just begun. I don't usually like the Giants, but this time around, I like what Mama's cooking in that fridge of theirs.
Yeah.
So credit to them. But yeah, I have more optimism for the Giants in this game. than I did, despite them only scoring 6 points. The Saints defense does still have some talented players on that team. I think that with the Giants offensive line, them struggling to run the football this past game, I think it was kind of inevitable. Plus, they're riding high. I think they were coming on a 3-game winning streak. Kind of an inevitable loss for a team that isn't all that talented at the end of the day. But as long as the Saints don't make the playoffs, I am a happy man. Derek Carr, call it Derek Carr wreck.
Yeah.
Got a touchdown from Keith Kirkwood. Who started him? Who knows? Don't really have much to talk about for the Saints other than I am begging that they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm begging they don't win on Thursday because the Saints have been an absolute wreck. Do you think you keep Dennis Allen there? Like, give him a shot with an actual quarterback? Or you're like, we kind of gave you this head coaching job as a favor, but I think it'd be best if you go back to being a coordinator or we just go our separate ways.
If you want to, I mean, he is still competing for that division. If you want to give him another year, I guess, but I don't think he's proven to be like an exceptional head coach.
No.
Their defense has been inconsistent and their offense has been very clunky. I know that's not his specialty, but it's not like that team doesn't have talent. They have Chris Olave, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara hasn't really missed a step for the most part.
Yeah.
So I think their big thing should be trying to move on from Derek Carr. Although I don't even know if they can with that contract.
No.
So they're kind of screwed. But next game, staying in the NFC South for some reason. Panthers. What did I say? A couple weeks ago, I'm like, they have to win at least one more game. At least one more game. And I saw the Saints and I saw the Falcons. I'm like, there's their chance. You know, in division, I'm like, they can win. And boy, did they make it tough for themselves. They really, really tried to lose this game. But so did the Falcons, thankfully. The Falcons tried their best. Desmond Ridder officially out as the quarterback for them. We're going to start Taylor Heineke.
No.
Credit to the Panthers defense. This is really the team that should be shouted out because it shouldn't be their offense. 50 yards rushing for the Falcons. Bijan Robinson spoiling a lot of teams' fantasy teams with 1 point. Yikes. That's not good. And then Bryce Young, he didn't throw an interception. He had a QBR of 90, and they scored 9 points, and that was enough for them to win without scoring an offensive touchdown. But one thing I can say about this game is I knew that they could win at least one more game. Just one. Yeah. All I needed was like 1-16. That's a tough pill to swallow. 2-15. We suck. I know it's not much of a difference. It's only one game, but I'm like, I don't think they're 1-16 bad. They're not like 2016 Browns bad. They're bad. They're a terrible team. Offensively, egregious. But I thought that they could win at least one more game, and they did. So now they can win out. They can lose out the rest of the games, and I don't care. I just wanted them to win one more game. Despite them not scoring an offensive touchdown, they did it. Congratulations, Panthers.
Yeah, like I just want to know who are the coaches that watched Desmond Ridder play in practice and preseason were like, that's the guy we should run with this season. The return of Josh Freeman. We really want that guy as our next quarterback. Except, oh, wait, Josh Freeman actually played an entire season in Tampa. Who would have thought? And then Desmond Ridder goes out there, plays terrible. We'll get some touchdowns, but for the most part, not a great NFL QB. You have Taylor Heineke there, and then you're kind of like, oh, let's start this one, start that one. No, that's not going to work. And then you're basically screwed at the quarterback position, have to go back to the drawing board in the draft or free agency this year. Maybe you can bring in Justin Fields if the Bears decide to let him go. Just give Arthur Smith one more chance if he wants Justin Fields, and then that's about it. Maybe you bring in someone like Malik Willis because that seems like a player they'd probably get. And then I just want to shout out all the fantasy bros who are dancing on the grave of Jahmyr Gibbs. They're like, wow, look at how awesome Bijan Robinson is, and he's playing great to start the season. And then look at how terrible Jahmyr Gibbs is. You must be stupid if you took him before Bijan Robinson. And then the season starts to go on. They're like, wait, what happened to Bijan? Then they're like, oh, wow, 189 total yards for Jahmyr Gibbs. And then he starts cooking. David Montgomery's still cooking. So it's like, before you dance on a guy's grave and proclaim your guy like, oh, yeah, I got this guy as a steal in my franchise draft. Like, maybe you should let the season play out first.
Yeah. And I do think Bijan will be a good running back in the future. But the NFL and especially fantasy football, very reactionary. And it's kind of funny that this is the end of their fate because honestly, they probably lost a lot of people playoff games and bragging rights in their teams because that 1 point, that's a tough pill to swallow. That's a tough pill to swallow. So they kind of got what they deserve for those who were dancing on you for taking Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, I get it. I took him before Bijan Robinson, but at the same time, the Lions are a much better organization, and I thought they'd slowly bring him into the fold. I wasn't betting my entire future on Jahmyr Gibbs, but he ends up looking like the better player now, and Jahmyr Gibbs looks like the return of Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. One thing I want to go back to with Desmond Ridder, if you remember in the offseason when Lamar Jackson, there was rumors of him being traded, the Falcons specifically said, no, we're good. We're not worried. We don't want Lamar Jackson. I know he's capable and I know he's better than what we might have, but we're going to see what we have with Desmond Ridder.
What?
Well, you remember that, right? They were in the mix for Lamar Jackson at one point.
We're good?
Yeah, they said we're good. And this is why the Falcons are the third place team in that division. They just lost to the lowly Panthers.
Yeah.
Because you decided that Lamar Jackson's good and all. He won an MVP, arguably the greatest rushing quarterback of all time. We saw him on prime time on Sunday night. But we're good. We have Desmond Ridder. Well, how did that go for you? Because you scored 7 points with him. He got benched again. And now you're going to start Taylor Heineke again. And now you guys are what? 6-8 now? Congratulations. You get what you fucking deserve.
Yeah. Now the Desmond Ridder's literally at this point, he's just in the running for dating the next Kardashian, or maybe he dates a Jenner here. But that's about where his that's the next the next milestone in his career is dating a Jenner or a Kardashian. But I feel like that's about it for Desmond Ridder here.
Yeah. So let's move on to a better game, a game with a team that we have both fallen in love with the last few weeks. And that is because we talked about Brandon Bolden. How about another guy who's come from the shadows? That is none other than Joe Flacco. Yeah. Winning yet another game, throwing for 300 yards in back-to-back games. Again, first time since Brian Sipe for the Cleveland Browns back in 1980. What a different time that was. Here we are now. They beat the Bears, coming back from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter with none other than Mr. Flacco himself.
Yeah, Mr. Flacco himself, and it took him a while to get going, and I do give credit to the Bears in this game because it does look like everyone on that staff is coaching and everyone on that field is playing for their proverbial jobs next year. Had a great touchdown. Shout out to Cole Kmet, who got a touchdown early in this game, helping put the Bears above. Cole Kmet, you're a beast tight end. Most underrated tight end in the league. We're the ones who started that bandwagon before everyone decided to jump on it themselves. And
what a luxury.
Justin Fields played well in this game, but it was in Cleveland. It's a tough environment, and that's when there's just levels to the NFL where you're competing with a team, and then the Browns are like, nah, we're just better than you. We can't afford to lose this game. We are going to win this game, and we're not going to lose this game at home. Joe Flacco opens it up to Marquise Goodwin, of all people in this game, gets going, and then David Njoku, his new favorite target. And then when Elijah Moore talks about seeing poetry in motion, you see a stat line like Amari Cooper, 4 catches, but 100 yards instead of under Deshaun Watson, 4 catches for like 16 yards or something like that. And Joe Flacco is going to be that leader in the team. He's someone who players can look up to because now you have another veteran presence in that locker room who's been there, won a Super Bowl. Jim Schwartz, another veteran coordinator in that locker room who has been to and won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles as their defensive coordinator. And I think that team is going to look very similar to how the Eagles made their run with Nick Foles, where Joe Flacco just goes on this electric tear. But I think my quote of the game, because we had that Hail Mary at the end of the game, first of all, Darnell Mooney. You have the ball in your hands to win this game, and your instinct is to throw the ball at your feet and kick it to a defender. That's number one problem. And then quote of the game is David Njoku. They're like, how do you feel about Darnell Mooney grabbing the ball, throwing it at his feet, and kicking it to your defender? And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I shit my pants.
Yeah, and so did Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
I'm tired. There was a lot of people on Twitter the last several years that said, dude, Darnell Mooney, this is his time. I'm like,
now here's
says
the guy.
Who?
Collinsworth.
What has Darnell Mooney proven other than that he has stretches of games where he doesn't record a catch at a point in the game? And I get it. Though last year, if he was ever going to make that next leap, it was last year before DJ Moore came in. But now, who would you rather throw it to? Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, or Darnell Mooney? Darnell Mooney is somebody who you're going to see on the Chiefs next year as they replace Kadarius Toney. And you're going to see the same issues because he's basically Kadarius Toney at this point. He can't catch to save his life. So many drops. Poor Justin Fields. Get this man out of Chicago. The last play, it literally fell into his chest. And he's like, oh, shits his pants, literally, just with David Njoku. I feel bad for the plumbers of Cleveland's stadium. Just in general. But Darnell Mooney, the lore with Darnell Mooney for his entire career has been, oh, dude, this is his year. Yeah. Give me a break. You know who really it's his year for? How about David Njoku himself, Mr. Shits His Pants? This guy, ever since Joe Flacco came around, he's been an absolute menace. One of the best tight ends in football the last several weeks with Joe Flacco. And it's amazing what happens when your quarterback can throw down the field, especially to a big physical beast of a tight end that is David Njoku. So it's amazing. But yeah, Darnell Mooney, get him out of here. He's going to play for the Chiefs next year. He's going to replace Kadarius Toney. It's going to be the same lore that we have this year with Kadarius Toney, but instead with Darnell Mooney. Same face, different name.
Or New England. You know, I think the Patriots fans will be like, bro, we got to steal from New England, from Chicago. We got Darnell Mooney. I've heard his name on national television before. That must mean he's good.
Dude, 7th round pick for him. What a steal.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't know if it was Troy Aikman or Kirk Herbstreit last year, but there was some Bears game. It may have been Collinsworth, actually, where they're like, yeah, if I was a new head coach, one of the teams I would want to go to is the Chicago Bears. You got all that young talent there. You got Darnell Mooney. You got Cole Kmet. And I was like, nice, dude. Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney. Like, I get Cole Kmet, but, like, how are you a professional at what you do? And you're like, I think this is the best situation in Chicago because of Darnell Mooney, Justin Fields. Like, no, not at all. Not at all. It must have been Troy Aikman. It must have been, because he doesn't watch anyone else play besides the Cowboys.
Yeah, no. Darnell Mooney sucks. The Browns, though, all but solidified themselves in that 5th seed as long as they can win. I think one more game will lock them in there. They're 9-5 when everyone else is 8-6. Elevated. So I think you see them locking themselves into that 5th seed.
Yeah, I definitely see themselves locking themselves into that 5th seed. I think with Joe Flacco there, and then you're going to play the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. That'll be a tough game, especially if Christian Kirk is back, but I think they can do it. And then you're probably going to play Baltimore in the 2nd round, unless Indianapolis upsets Miami, which I think they can, but you're probably going to play the number 1 seed and then upset Baltimore, who's probably going to be coming off some bye week rust, and Lamar Jackson hasn't proven too much in the playoffs yet. So Cleveland Browns do have a path there. And then after that, you would probably, I don't know who they'd be facing in the conference championship. After that, maybe the Chiefs, maybe the Bengals. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? That AFC is absolutely cursed. But let's go to the NFC West with the best team in football currently, the 49ers. Got the win against the Cardinals. Not a whole lot to say here. Other than the fact that Christian McCaffrey, 20 touchdowns on the season, on pace for 2,200 yards, receiving and catching all scrimmage yards. 49ers 4th win in a row where they've won by more than 10. Yeah,
4th win in a row where they've won by more than 10. And what do all 4 of those teams have in common? They're all birds. So is it really the San Francisco 49ers? Or is it the San Francisco Windmills at this point? Because what do you see when you look under a windmill? It is a dead bird graveyard. And even one of those teams they took out was the Philadelphia Eagles. If you or I was to go out there and then knock off an eagle, we would be in jail. And that's okay. But the 49ers do it, and people say, oh, look at how great the 49ers are. They knocked off an Eagle, and now they're knocking off Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks. They are running through all the bird teams in the NFL. So the San Francisco 49ers, the past month, have basically been the windmills of the NFL.
Yes, very impressive win for the Niners. Now, I want to pivot to the MVP conversation with this game because Right now, Vegas has Brock Purdy as the favorite, even after this game. Dak Prescott took a dive after the loss that we'll go over in a few minutes.
Good.
But do you see Brock Purdy as the MVP, or do you see who I think is the MVP of that team, Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey would definitely be the MVP of that team. I get normally giving it to the quarterback, but there is definitely a difference in the style of play the 49ers have had since they've gotten Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey was someone who is injury riddled just with how much basically carrying the entire Carolina Panthers franchise on his back over the past few years, and that's why his knees were breaking down. Now it's effortless for him, Trent Brown, and he doesn't have to be the bell cow. However, 20 touchdowns. He's gone on one of the best tears of any running back in the NFL the past few years. He's been Mr. Consistent for him. Take away Christian McCaffrey from that team. Where are they really going to be? So I wouldn't mind McCaffrey being the MVP. I wouldn't even mind Brock Purdy being the MVP. Because look at the San Francisco 49ers. If you take away Brock Purdy, you take away Jimmy Garoppolo even from that team. And talk about the definition of valuable. He's not getting paid very much because he was the last pick in the draft. I believe they can't be paying him more than $800,000 there. Yeah. So that's also another point where you can now pay Nick Bosa, pay Debo, and have all of these players around him. And that's kind of the value he can bring to San Francisco. But I think him or McCaffrey, or we saw how they looked without Debo Samuel, and it was a completely different team, even with having Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. So do you think that any of those players could win MVP? Because it seems like all three of them together equally provide a certain level of value. Brock Purdy, one of the best game managers in the NFL currently. You have Christian McCaffrey, who's going to have 2,000 scrimmage yards again. And then obviously Debo Samuel and what he brings to that team.
Yeah, I think it'd be fair to have any of them. I think him and McCaffrey could be co-MVPs, but I think they're always going to give it to the quarterback. But I'm fine giving it to the best quarterback on the best team. And I think if they didn't have Brock Purdy, I hear about all these quarterbacks and how good they'd be without him. They can plug any quarterback into that system. Well, conference championship, okay. No Brock Purdy. You can't have Christian McCaffrey play quarterback there. So how valuable was McCaffrey when Brock Purdy wasn't on the field in the conference championship? Not that valuable because he can't play quarterback.
That's true. But not much to say about the Cardinals in this game. They suck. They'll probably be on the bottom 5 teams. Who knows? But they continue to roll, and they are currently the 1 seed in the NFC, who looks like they should be the favorites to make it out of the dance. Now, we move on to the next game, which was the Rams and Commanders game. You look at the score, you're like, oh, 28-20. What a close game. No, that's not what you say. 28-7. They decide, Sam Howell, it's time to take an early shower. Let's bring in Jacoby Brissett, another guy who appeared from the shadows. We're like, we saw him in Miami. We saw him in New England. We saw him in Indianapolis. And now we see him on the Commanders. And here we are now. He came down as soon as Sam Howell was taken out, scores 2 touchdowns. Looks like a game on paper, but realistically, it was not. Rams win. They are now in the 7th seed if the season ended today.
Yeah, and I really like the Rams in that 7th seed. I think with Puka Nacua, he's played really well so far for them, especially with Cooper Kupp starting to get his NFL legs back under him the past few weeks. And when Kyron Williams, talk about the MVP like that no one knows about for any team, like the Rams MVP at this point is Kyron Williams, because when he's off the field, they can't run the ball, can't move the ball as effectively on offense, but they just went to Baltimore, hung with them, go to overtime, and then they absolutely demolish the Commanders. This was a team that we had finishing at 9-8, I believe, and it looks like they're going to be right around that record. And it's a team I want to see in the playoffs match up with the Detroit Lions, just with all the storylines, trading Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay versus Dan Campbell. But I think this is a really impressive game. Commanders have been wavering the past few weeks, so they did bench Sam Howell. They haven't been playing their best football, but at this point, it just shows me the Rams are going to go out there and beat down a team they need to beat, and they have their eyes set on the playoffs right now, and I hope they make it because Stafford has Super Bowl experience, has been to a conference championship, and been to the playoffs multiple times now, so he'll have that experience to not panic if they match up with say a Dallas or a Detroit.
Yeah, I think that they're a much more interesting team than some of the other teams that are in the mix. They have experience. It could also be maybe their last dance. Who knows? Matt Stafford was contemplating retirement before the season. Same goes with Aaron Donald. So this could really be their last big push. And I think if they can go to the playoffs and upset somebody, it's going to be a great way to end it. And I give credit to them. I like what they've done with Puka Nacua. I like what Kyron Williams has brought, but also their defense as well. Because that defense on paper entering the season, I'm like, who else but Aaron Donald? Because other than that, I didn't really know much of their players. They have Kobe Durant and everyone else, but not really any household names on that team. But they've gone out there and they shut down the Commanders for a majority of the game. And now they're in the 7th seed. So I hope they continue to keep that spot and make the dance.
Do you think they could hang with Dallas?
I think, yeah, absolutely. You have a coaching mismatch there.
Yeah.
And I think that with the Cowboys secondary being kind of inconsistent at certain points, I think that they could definitely put up a fight.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be a really interesting matchup because the Cowboys got the better of them, but Kyron Williams wasn't really as healthy as he could have been in that game. Cooper Kupp was still getting readjusted. So I think that could be a really fun game.
Yeah. Which, speaking of the Cowboys, we talk about a team that was flying high. No pun intended. They beat the Eagles, their division foe. They look like one of the best teams in football. They were even on the Brickyard's top 5 teams, according to the Brickyard. And then they faced the Buffalo Bills, who are riding high. Josh Allen been playing some good football the last few weeks, getting back into that playoff competition. And then the Bills ran all over them with not Delvin Cook. No, James Cook. And James Cook, he has been playing some good football lately. And the Bills, 278 rushing yards against the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott's MVP race plummets. Thoughts on this game?
Thoughts on this game is the Cowboys can't win on the road. You're 3-4 on the road. You're undefeated at home, and you score an average of, I believe it's 39 points at home. Interesting, because when you go on the road, you average a whopping 21 points. So there is nearly a 20-point drop from when the Cowboys are at home versus on the road. That is a massive problem for a team that is not a lock to win their division yet. You still have to go to Miami. That's going to be a tough game, especially if Tyreek Hill is back. So if you have to go on the road to Tampa, you're definitely going to have to go on the road to San Francisco if they do what they should and take care of business in the divisional round. So this is a team where it's like, wow, that is a massive red flag, and they can't run the ball on the road. It's not the same running game with Tony Pollard. He's not getting loose. And then Dak Prescott is not the same quarterback on the road than he is at home. When he's on the road, he can't do the same. Yeah, here we go. That's taking the NFL by storm, and it's definitely going to be the name of a production company like Omaha. That's for sure. But
right.
And the same with the Cowboys defense. Their defense doesn't translate on the road as well as it can either. And then you go on the road versus Buffalo. I get Buffalo at this point is like trying to win every single game. This is a team that has not once thought to run the ball and take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands when he's turning the ball over left and right. And they're like, oh, so we get a run game going? No, but you're the team that gets run all over by the Buffalo Bills. You want to have Micah Parsons be the defensive player of the year? You want this to be a generational defense? Well, you can't be the first team that the Buffalo Bills decide like, oh yeah, maybe we should try that one thing that's part of the game that's just called running the football, which is part of having a balanced offense in the NFL. And Josh Allen didn't have to do anything to beat you, and then you get absolutely destroyed, shellacked, vamoosed, obliterated, eradicated from winning another road game this year. Like, come on. This is what you do. You beat the Philadelphia Eagles, who are currently limping right now. Jalen Hurts looks miserable on the field. Sure, you won that game. Credit to you for doing it at home. But can we not have a one-score game in LA versus the Chargers? Can we not lose to the Arizona Cardinals on the road? Can we not get absolutely looked outclassed by the San Francisco 49ers on the road and then absolutely shellacked on the road by Buffalo of all teams who couldn't even beat Denver? Are you kidding me? Like, come on.
I think this is fitting. You know, you always talk about the Baker Mayfield clock, the Cowboys clock. Gets hot in September, looks like the best team in football, comes down to earth, loses against the Cardinals. Then they beat up on bad teams, the Patriots, the Panthers, whoever it might be. Then they lose another big game that they shouldn't have lost. Then they beat a team that they shouldn't beat, the Eagles. They beat up on the Eagles, and we're like, wait a minute, this team's 10-4. This team looks like one of the best teams in football. Their defense, you know, Dak Prescott playing great football. Tony Pollard coming alive, CeeDee Lamb having a career year. And then to end the clock, they get embarrassed by a playoff team / someone who's in the mix in the Buffalo Bills. And that's the Cowboys clock the last 25 years, historically. All we need now is for them to lose against the Niners in the playoffs, and then that circle will be complete.
Or Detroit.
Once
every 50 years, they lose to Detroit.
And then, so I do want to give credit to the Bills, though, because after that Broncos game, it looked like they were dead in the water. And since then, they beat up on the Jets, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and now they beat up on the Cowboys. Did look like they were dead, and now they look pretty good to return. They face the Chargers this week, who I think they should absolutely beat. The Patriots, who they have to beat. And then they face the Dolphins potentially for that division. So I give credit to the Bills there. And I like what they did. One thing I like that the Bills did, crazy, run the football. Get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands when he's been throwing an interception in not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 consecutive games he threw an interception.
Yeah.
But not in this game, because he threw the ball 15 times. He threw for 94 yards. And he only rushed it. Well, he rushed it 8 times, but he had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah.
Josh Allen didn't have to do much, and that's okay. When you have to get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands and give it to James Cook, who's not historically like a fantastic running back for them, and you got 180 rushing yards for James Cook looking like prime Delvin Cook,
yeah,
that's a problem for the Cowboys. And now it showed a recipe for how to beat the Cowboys. Run the football. And next week, who do they face? The Lions, who have a two-headed monster in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Who do the Niners have? Christian McCaffrey. You look at the teams that they face. Like, they've exposed themselves. Like, oh, wait, they can't really stop the run. That's a problem because every team that they're going to face in the playoffs are probably going to be good at running the ball.
Yeah.
So they're in a lot of trouble. Cowboys, you got to rebound. Credit to the Bills. Looks like they could still make that playoff spot. I give credit to them there.
Yeah.
But this is really about the Cowboys, dude.
This is embarrassing. Like, how do I get like losing after beating Philadelphia, and I wouldn't care if they just lost to the Bills. Like, oh, Dak tried to lead them down the field. They got stopped. Mike McCarthy should have gone for it, didn't go for it. Shouldn't have gone for it, then went for it. Like, things like that happen. But like the Sean McDermott led Bills, who are just dead in the water and didn't know how to run the football until this game. Like, you have to be kidding me. You can't make this stuff up about the Dallas Cowboys. And then even the Green Bay Packers before, the reason why they struggled against the Packers in the playoffs in years previous is just Aaron Jones would run all over them. And you're going to beat McCaffrey? Like, give me a break. James Cook, not even Dalvin Cook. James Cook and the Buffalo Bills, who can't elevate anyone at running back.
Yeah. So this is a big, like, I was starting to believe in the Cowboys. I'm like, you know what? They look like a good team. Well, they look like a good team in Dallas. When they go anywhere else, who knows?
They averaged 21 points a game. And I'm pretty sure one of those games they lit up was the Giants game and the Panthers. And they scored over 30 in both of those games. So really, you're averaging about like 20 to 18 points against good teams on the road.
Yeah. And if you don't win, they have to win their division. They have to. Because otherwise, it's not going to look good for them. You're talking about a team that has to win their division. You know, Lions are all but locked up. 49ers are all but locked up. They have to. Because if they don't, they have to go on the road. First game against Tampa, that doesn't look pretty. Even the Eagles, that's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
But if they don't, I mean, you go to Levi Stadium, whether it be a championship game, and the way they play it on the road, it's over. It's completely over for them.
It's over. Yeah, you have to stifle that game. Hope you get some momentum and pray for some injuries, which no team should be doing, but just embarrassing. It's ridiculous that the Cowboys are still at this point now where you're just getting shellacked on the road this badly.
Yeah. But then let's move over to our Sunday night game, which was the Ravens and Jaguars game. What happened in this game? Lamar Jackson made some fantastic plays, and the Jags had a lot of missed opportunities. They had 2 missed field goals. They had a missed touchdown from Calvin Ridley, which honestly probably should have been a touchdown. But a lot of missed opportunities there. They had a couple of fumbles from Trevor Lawrence, some bad fumbles too. And for a team like the Ravens, you really can't make those mistakes. And that's why they won. And you see the final score 23-7. Ravens look like they're going to probably lock up that home field advantage. And then the Jags, now they're tied in a 3-way tie with the CJ Stroud-led Texans and Gardner Minshew-led Colts, and potentially could lose their division.
Yeah, you could potentially lose your division now, and this was by no means a game where you're like, oh, yeah, they get dominated front to back. It was just a game where Trevor Lawrence looked like Daniel Jones in some spots where you're like, dude, he's like, oh, I'm going to fall down and get sacked. Let me drop the ball and give it to the defense anyways. Like, what? What are you talking about? It's like I should have Walt Jr. screaming at him in the background and have Shane Gillis's cousin throwing grilled cheeses at him with that performance. Like, what are you doing? I'm going to fall down, so I might as well drop the ball too. Like, that first fumble I had, I was like, oh, you can't do that and then be the prince who is promised. You can't be the chosen one and make mistakes that are honestly just stupid. I get if you throw a bad interception, but just literally dropping the ball in this game. And that's what it came down to for the Jaguars in this game. Kicker, 2 mixed field goals. Just drop the ball there. Trevor Lawrence legitimately dropping the ball. And then you gave the Ravens defense, and it seemed like the Jaguars were just so discouraged by those plays. And I saw people like, oh, the Jaguars need another receiver. It's like, no, they don't. We have Calvin Ridley. Christian Kirk is out. You have Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne, Dearness Johnson, like Zay Jones also on this team. You have some Jamal Agnew, who's another good receiver. It's like this team is not lacking an elite receiver. They're not lacking a wide receiver on this team. And then even their defense, Lamar Jackson made really good plays in this game, and it wasn't necessarily to the fault of the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. It was more just Lamar Jackson playing to his MVP caliber that he has been at before, and then actually moving around, buying time, and then getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He had the arm angles going in this game. Chris Collinsworth was going crazy. And with this, I'll give Collinsworth credit because we complain about Tony Romo glazing Mahomes. People talk about and Josh Allen, but Chris Collinsworth just loves football, and he does it for every good player. He doesn't do it just for 2 guys, and some people don't like him, but I'll give him credit for actually praising more than 2 players in the NFL there, but rightfully so for Lamar Jackson, which is my main point, because he was playing like an MVP in this game, and he just made enough plays to get them down the field to win this game and really hold the ball, dominate the clock. And then just honestly, with how he was playing, he was discouraging the Jaguars because I don't know what else we can do to stop this guy. He can run, he can pass, and he's more accurate this season than I've seen him in the past few years.
Yeah, no, a lot of credit to Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson, when he's playing his best football, I think he's the only one that you can put in that same echelon as Patty Mahomes. Because there's plays that Patrick Mahomes makes where nobody else can make it. Lamar Jackson, same level. You're talking about whether it be running around, holding the ball, waiting for people to get open. And some of the plays that he made were just ridiculous. You're like, who is this guy? A little bit of a Steph Curry thing in him there for sure. Some of the plays you're seeing, like, this guy is not human. So I really like what Todd Pullian has done with that offense. Historically, that offense has been, Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews, like very less than stellar wide receivers around them. This year, you got OBJ, he has a couple of games where you see him kind of pop. Zay Flowers, maybe a year away from being really elite, but really good there. Isaiah Likely, talking about losing Mark Andrews, top 5 tight end in football. Isaiah Likely, he's looking like a really nice tight end, and I think they should start doing 2 tight end sets with them. I think he's a really, really solid tight end. He was really good. He's been really stepping up for them the last month or so. Ravens, this is their year. If there's any year for them to make it to the Super Bowl and win it, this is their year. You're talking about a defense that's top 5, Kyle Hamilton, everybody in their secondary, whoever it might be, Patrick Queen.
Yeah.
That defense is stellar. Their offensive line is good. Their defense, Lamar Jackson, obviously a stellar quarterback there. Their receivers are finally right. If they don't make the Super Bowl this year, I think it'll be a disappointment for the Ravens. Now, whether they beat the 49ers, who knows? That's to be seen. But with the issues that the Chiefs have, with the lack of clarity with the Dolphins and Bills, with the AFC South and what that's been, and everybody else, like, this is the year where the Ravens should be at least in the AFC title game, and it should probably be the favorites to win the AFC.
Yeah, I would love a Cleveland-Baltimore AFC title game. I think that would be the best, but I think they'll probably face off in the second round unless another wildcard team wins it, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially with this year, to see 2 wildcards win it. But yeah, that would be a really good matchup. I wouldn't mind, like, Josh Allen sneaking into the playoffs. Maybe he beats Miami, and then we get Lamar versus Josh Allen, and then we could get second round like Cleveland versus Kansas City. I feel like those could both be really good matchups, but did have an injury to Keaton Mitchell, ended up leaving the game on a cart, and then Ronnie Stanley get banged up. So if there's any one injury that could derail the Baltimore Ravens playoff hopes, I do think it would be Ronnie Stanley, because historically he's actually done pretty well against Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett has not had the best games of his career versus Baltimore. Usually it's like Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, and Ronnie Stanley's been able to hold him at bay. But if he's banged up in a playoff run, I think that would be the one thing that could derail the Baltimore Ravens. And then just the clock management issues are still a question. Not knowing whether or not John Harbaugh is going to be an NFL coach or Chat GPT, we will find out. But he's still a Super Bowl winning head coach. So definitely a lot of respect for him there. But Baltimore showed up and showed out. Trevor Lawrence should get grilled cheese thrown at him by Shane Gillis's uncle. What are you doing? Just hold on to the ball, fall down.
This is why I don't believe in the Jaguars. I don't think they're ready yet. With all the errors that they seem to make week in and week out, it's not their receiver talent. It's not their running back talent. It's not even Trevor Lawrence's talent. It's that I just don't think they're ready yet for that next step. They just seem like they're a step below some of these elite guys, like the Chiefs, like the Ravens, like some of the other teams you can mention.
Yeah, because it's like they haven't been losing games. They've just been beating themselves.
Exactly. And I think if you can clear that up, because it's not like their coaching is a problem either. Doug Peterson's a Super Bowl winning head coach. He's proven to be a great head coach in the league. I don't know what's missing there. I don't know if maybe they need, maybe it's a new offensive coordinator, whoever it might be. It's not their year, I don't think. They might not even win the division at the end of the day.
Yeah, maybe it's Trevor's banged up, but I'm pretty sure it was his ankle that got hurt, not his hands. So
or his brain.
Yeah, or his brain. That shouldn't. Maybe he's a little bit too sun-dried in the Jacksonville sun down there.
Yeah, but apparently so is it down there in Seattle where it rains, because Seahawks have a last-second drive to beat the Eagles on primetime on Monday night. Jalen Hurts now leads the league in turnovers with 17, matching Josh Allen, Sam Howell, and Joshua Dobbs. So in this game, Seahawks keep their playoff hopes alive. And the Eagles, they are now the 5th seed. They'd be facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Raymond James Stadium if the season were to end today.
Yeah, they would be facing them at Raymond James Stadium, and I don't think that's a great matchup, especially how they played in this game. Like, are you kidding me? DK Metcalf at the end of that game. After the Dallas Cowboys game, I was like, what is wrong with the Seattle Seahawks? DK Metcalf just had an historic first half, and then the last 2 drives, you didn't even look his way. I'm like, can we just force it to DK? I'm not usually one of those people that's like, yeah, you need to force it to this player, but when it's DK Metcalf and he's that tall, he's that big, he's that strong, maybe you should get that guy the ball, especially on the last drive of the game, because he's falling down. Oh, no problem. Ball's over here. I'm going to stop James Bradbury from intercepting the ball. Not only that, grab it with one hand, bring it basically to under my leg, and then catch the ball. Are you kidding me? And then the one where he caught it down the sideline in double coverage, falling out of bounds, ends up getting his knee down, so the clock still ran. But like, yes, when you have DK Metcalf, force it to DK Metcalf and good things will happen. And that's been my problem with the Seattle Seahawks. And this game, you're on basically your 8. You drive the ball 92, 91 yards down the field. I don't know what it was exactly. And then you get it to DK Metcalf. And then they're so worried about DK Metcalf. Colin Cowherd's former preseason MVP pick, Drew Lock, has an absolute rip to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then ends up winning the game for the Philadelphia Eagles, who seemed like they weren't taking the Seahawks too seriously, or they're just bad at this point, and we don't know it yet. We'll get that confirmation about that when they fall down and maybe lose to the Giants. Then we'll know if they're in real trouble or not. But Seattle, force the ball to DK Metcalf. That is a winning formula, and that's what I've been begging them to do, especially in that Dallas game. It's like he's been cooking all of these guys. He didn't even look his way.
He's one of the best receivers in the league, and he doesn't get the numbers or the opportunities that he should.
Yeah.
And it's an enigma to me, because he had those opportunities with Russ. And I think that ever since Geno took over, I think Geno's a lot more of a conservative quarterback.
Yeah.
Because of some of the bouncing around that he's had in the league. But Drew Lock doesn't care. Drew Lock's like, no, man, we know who the best receiver is, and it's DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like when you have DK and Madden. If you know, you know.
If you know,
Franchise
you know.
Madden DK Metcalf. Doesn't matter if you have to give up a first round pick or not. He will be worth every single penny.
Yeah.
He's a monster. And he's a monster in real life too. We just don't see him enough because we're seeing checkdowns, we're seeing slants, we're seeing go routes. No. DK Metcalf, deep down the sideline, some vertical routes. This man is undefeated. We're talking about a 6'4" guy who has the speed of Tyreek Hill. He's insane. He's made in a lab, dude.
How is he not a perennial top 5 receiver? It's like ridiculous to me. And with Drew Lock was fine forcing the ball to Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. And when that becomes DK Metcalf, who should be a top 5 receiver year in and year out, who's someone who should be chasing Megatron's single season receiving record, it's like, yeah, just throw it at him. DK's out there somewhere, and that's what I want to happen. And Drew Lock, it's like, he was bad in Denver, but like Pete Carroll resurrecting some of these guys' career, it's like good for him.
Yeah, good for Drew Lock. I don't think he'll get a starting job somewhere, but he can be a backup. I mean, he backed up. He had a decent game against the Eagles today. And you know what? If you want to keep him on the sideline and if an injury were to come down, he can step in for a few games. He won this game. He made some big throws when it mattered. So he's got the capability. As long as he's got the right talent around him, which in Seattle he does, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm here for it. And Seattle was a team that had lost 4 straight games. I picked Philadelphia because I thought Philadelphia needed to win too. But at the same time, how many games can you really lose here? But how discouraged are you in the Philadelphia Eagles? Are you basically off the bandwagon now that they can make a legitimate playoff run? Are you on the bandwagon that Tampa could potentially upset them now?
I'm on the wagon that it's definitely like a possibility, where before I was like, no, I mean, AJ Brown, D Swift, Jalen Hurts, and then all those guys on the defensive line. I'm like, I don't know. But now, after a perfect game, literally from Baker Mayfield, and after what I saw against Seattle, the Eagles are in a lot of trouble, and they have 3 more games to clean up the mess, or they're going to be first round exits. Yeah.
Why is Matt Patricia the defensive coordinator? Who thought it was a good idea to give this guy another shot? Like I know he's on the Philadelphia Eagles and I know he got hired there, but I still forget because I'm like, yeah, who would hire Matt Patricia? That's such a dumb idea. When Bill Belichick was the one organizing and scheming the defense. And then I keep looking at Philadelphia and there he is, the rocket scientist himself, Coach Pencil, drawing up something good. Oh, wait, no, he's like, let me bring down a safety to stop the check down when this team doesn't have any timeouts and they need to drive 90 yards, but I'm going to stop the check down and let DK Metcalf go one-on-one down the sideline. Same with Jackson Smith and Jigba. What a great plan.
Yeah, see, as soon as I saw he was calling plays, I'm like, I should bet on the Seahawks right now. I really should. And if I did that, I would have made some money, and I regret that. Maybe gambling is the right answer. Who knows? But I'm like, Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator tonight. Drew Lock, Seahawks got to win this. I think, Vegas probably wants the Seahawks to win this game, probably favored more on the Eagles. I don't know. I feel like the NFL probably wants the Seahawks to win this game, especially because they want the Cowboys to probably win that division. And I didn't bet on it, and I should have. And now I really regret it because, quite honestly, this game, it's one of those games where it's not obvious until it's over. You're like, oh, yep, right. That makes perfect sense. Seahawks win. Now they're 7-7. They're in the mix with the Packers and the Rams for that seed. It's like, I should have bet on it. I wish I did. And for the Eagles, it's like, what's happening? Because they were so good. They were 11-1 at one point, and now they're sitting here with,
Yeah, it's that Pittsburgh team. Like last week, I compared them to the Pittsburgh Steelers team that went 10-1. I was like, it seemed like they were limping to the finish line in all those games. The Eagles' schedule was definitely much tougher this year, but it seems like they're kind of limping to the finish line, and teams and people don't realize how hard it really is to get to back-to-back Super Bowls. Like the Kansas City Chiefs haven't even done it that much. Like the attrition it takes to make it back to a Super Bowl year in and year out is why it's so spectacular what the New England Patriots were able to do, the Steelers all of those years, the Cowboys, the 49ers. It's like, it is really tough to get back there, and then they just look tired, and you can see it. And I don't know if this is Jalen Hurts' like normal demeanor, but he just always looks like miserable anytime he's in the game. And then he's always like wincing. I feel like he definitely is playing through an injury right now because I know he hurt that knee earlier this year, and he had a tough time pushing off on some of those balls, and he doesn't seem like he has the same arm strength. So I definitely think he's dealing with some sort of injury, especially coming into the playoffs. You don't want to be limping into the dance there, especially when every game's a single elimination. And then I feel like Devontae Smith hasn't been as dynamic as I've seen him the past few seasons. It's been a lot of AJ Brown, but there were some times where he flat out just missed Devontae there, where he was trying to force it to AJ. And then you talk about having D Swift on that team. Is that a good thing? Like, we thought he was good in Detroit, but they ended up getting rid of him. And then you saw in Hard Knocks when they were trying to get into him, like, you have the potential to be a top running back. And it seemed like he just never really responded to it and wanted to leave Detroit. And now he's in his hometown of Philadelphia, but they haven't been able to run the ball with him.
Yeah, it's weird because the first half of the season he was doing really well, and there was one game where he had 150 receiving or rushing yards and he was killing it. And now I don't really know whether it be some banged up offensive linemen, or I know they've been kind of balancing the load with Kenneth Gainwell as well, but I don't know what it is, because I definitely think he's a good running back and I like him a lot, and I think Philly's a great fit for him. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know what's wrong with this team. There's something in the air.
Hasn't he always kind of like started out really hot and then just kind of either got injured or fallen off towards the end of the year?
I mean, Detroit, it was definitely like that. He is more of a first half kind of guy. But even then, like, I still think he's a good running back. Like, he had some decent runs in this game, but I don't know what it is with this guy. He's like, I think he's definitely an improvement from Miles Sanders, 100%. But like, he is somebody that I wouldn't want to pay a large bag for, because you've seen what's happened to him. He trails off at the end of the season, and now it's like, I don't know if he's playing through something or not, but he's definitely hasn't been the same either. Jalen Hurts hasn't been the same. I don't know what's in the air in Philly, but they definitely got to air it out before the season's over.
Yeah, I think it's too late at this point, especially limping into the playoffs. It looks like they can't put up points, especially when you're going on the road to Seattle. And if you're going to have to go on a road journey, it seems like that rough stretch they had in their schedule this year really took a lot out of them. So we have to see if they lose to the Giants here, or it's like a close competitive game. That's going to be a really bad sign, because with the Giants, that's been a team they've historically just dog walked over the past few years.
Yeah, and I think they face them twice in the next 3 weeks. So if they lose one of those games to the Giants, then that's trouble for them, 100%.
Yeah, that's going to spell trouble, but it was a very interesting week of football. I feel like a lot of the teams that should have lost, a lot of the teams that should have won, but we're excited to preview next week and recap some awful takes in our preview episode as well.
And you will see our best 5 and worst 5 teams according to the Brickyard. You will not want to miss it. Checking out the Week 16 preview.